you will become much better in endgames, your understanding of chess will be totally different, and you will never ever afraid of exchanging the queens. Hello champions, welcome to the course 100 must know classical endgames course. Many players hate to play endgames, some of them even get bored right away after the queens are exchanged. However, playing good endgames is a very important skill. Also, if you are good in endgames, you understand chess. In this course, I am going to show you the most instructive endgames in the history, played by greats like Capablanca, Rubinstein, Smyslov, Ulf Andersson and others. After learning this course, you will become much better in endgames, your understanding of chess will be totally different, and you will never ever afraid of exchanging the queens. Again, initially I am planning to make this course 100 games, but the number can go more. So let's start the course.
Hello dear champions, GM Gabuzyan is here with you and welcome to our classical commented endgame. In this video we will see how the ex-world champion Steinitz is fighting against the isolated pawn in the endgame. Very nice technique, how to use the passive positions of opponent's pieces and improve yours. Let's go ahead and get started. In this position that you are seeing, it's white to move. Now opponent just played knight e4 and they want to exchange our knight on c3 square. How are we going to react for white is the first question we need to figure out. Let's pause the video and try to understand this. Let's first of all see what black is going to do in this position. If it's black to move, they will be very happy to capture on c3. And after pawn takes back, black is also creating a pawn weakness for white on c3 square. So now they have the weak on d5, we have on c3. This is not what we're going to allow. Otherwise, we need to decide. Are we exchanging the knights or we play differently? In the game, Steinitz didn't capture on e4 and here is the reason. Now, black can take back with a d pawn and they are getting rid of the isolated weakness on d5. At this moment, if you are thinking about rook d7 check, which is winning the bishop on b7, at the same time, after king e6, white's bishop on b5 is hanging. So rook b7, black takes on b5. And now black will have a very equal endgame, without any weaknesses. That is the reason, as I mentioned, Steinitz chooses to play another way. Since we know the strategy is to play against fixed isolated pawn of opponent, we need to keep the pieces. He played little strange knight d1, going back. Why he is exactly choosing this square? Because later on he wants to play f3 and remove opponent's knight on e4. Just in case knight on d1 is protecting the pawn on e3 square. He tempoed in the game f5 and f3. Pay attention that this knight now is very important. In the game, black played knight to f6 and they didn't go knight to d6 because it's only attacking the bishop. Now white can go back bishop to d3. And in game, black just preferred to have the knight on another square. Now it happened f3 as I mentioned and knight f6. White is playing king f2, bringing this piece into the center. It's a very long-term advantage, playing against fixed isolated pawn. This is blocking their bishop. All of black pieces are stuck to this pawn protection. White is getting very nice outpost in front of it. It can be used by the rook, by the knight. And white is not having any pawn weaknesses. This is not a very quick position to win. White is slowly going to improve, using the fact black is all the time stuck to this pawn protection, trying to make more and more benefits, and eventually the little advantage will become a decisive one. Steinitz in this game shows a great technique and I'm really excited to share this game with you. Let's now continue. Black plays king d6, trying to strengthen the control over d5 weakness and as well activating the king into the center. There is no concrete idea here for white. All of the further actions depend on the opponent's moves as well. In general, white is trying to slowly advance, improve the position on the king side, on the queen side, in the center, trying to get better spots with the pieces. Sometimes stopping opponent's ideas from counterplay and preventing their activity. Stanis now plays knight c3. There is no longer any need to keep the piece passive on d1 square. It happens rook e7, and here he decides to go bishop back to e2. Sometimes he will have options of knight b5 checks, and as well, with this bishop, later on Stanis plans to make a very strong maneuver. Black continued bishop c6, and the first part of white's idea. Now white played h3. The idea is to play g4, trying to get a space advantage on the king side. In some conditions, white will be able to take on f5 and create another weakness. Sometimes white may be going g5 and also fixing opponent's pawn on h7 on the color of our bishop. As we know later on in the endgame, this can be a very big weakness, and that's why fixing opponent pawns on the color of our bishop is a good idea. After h3, black understands that g4 will be very active for the opponent. They didn't play g5 because it's creating an additional weakness on f5 square. Often white will be able to attack on this as well, and for this reason after h3, black played h5, but this move is also having a very big downside. I will offer you to do the following. You can pause the video and try to understand what's the issue of h5 move as black and how we can make a value out of this move. When the pawn is moving ahead, it's controlling some squares, but it's also potentially weakening some. Pawn on h7 was protecting pawn on g6 as well. It had the potential to go to h6 and control square on g5. Now, if you see this picture, there is a pawn hole in the middle of black pawns, and here white goes h4, fixing these guys on the color of our bishop. So those are the potential targets for the white bishop, and those pawns are very much limiting black bishop in different conditions. Fixing them is a great idea.